Assyria. Assyria was an ancient nation-state centered on the upper Tigris River in northern Mesopotamia, present-day northern Iraq, that came to rule regional empires a number of times through history. It was named for its original capital, the ancient city of Ashur, which in turn was named after Ashur, the son of Shem, and progenitor of the Assyrians. Assyrian Empire emerged shortly after the global flood and came to its greatest strength during the period of the divided kingdoms of Israel. It conquered and permanently dispersed the northern kingdom and attempted an invasion on the southern kingdom shortly thereafter. It is credited even with holding a brief sway over Egypt until Nabopolassar and Astyages led a joint force against its capital city of Nineveh and destroyed it in 612 BC.
It's not a country whose power is necessarily based on treaties. And as soon as Assyria's power wanes, it basically stands alone and it falls apart.
The earliest powers in the region were Sumer, Akkad, and Babylonia. The Bible is silent on the development of the Assyrian nation or its history until the visit of Jonah to Nineveh, capital of the Assyrian Empire.
Nabopolassar's hard-won victory against Babylonia's ancestral enemy was sweet. He jubilantly praised his triumph, saying, "I slaughtered the land of Assyria. I turned the hostile land into heaps and ruins." The Assyrian, which since distant days had ruled over all the peoples, and with his heavy yoke had brought injury to the people of the land, his feet from Akkad I turned back, and his yoke I threw off.
Nabopolassar, the founder and king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Nabopolassar was a general in the Assyrian army. He rebelled in 627 and established his capital in Babylon. His reign was one of continual warfare as he slowly captured the cities of the Assyrian realm.
In 605 BC, Nabopolassar died and was succeeded as king of Babylon by his eldest son, Nebuchadnezzar II. He had served as commander of his father's army and soon proved to be the equal of all the great Mesopotamian military leaders who'd gone before.
And he managed to reign for more than 40 years, in the course of which he established Babylonian control over much of the western territories of the former Assyrian Empire.
One of the territories ruled by Nebuchadnezzar was the Palestinian kingdom of Judah. In 600 BC, its king, Jehoiakim, made the unfortunate decision to withhold the annual tribute due to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar marched west in December 598 and attacked Jerusalem, Judah's capital city and the spiritual center of the Jewish people. In a battle over 3 months, the Babylonian army proved victorious and took Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar ordered what is known in Jewish history as the exile, the deportation to Babylon of thousands of Jews, including the king and his immediate family.
Nebuchadnezzar, Jehoiakim, not Jehoiakim, his son, Daniel, and a limited number of Yehudi, including nobles and Jehoiakim's descendants, taken to Babylon. 2 Kings. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him. 2 Chronicles. Against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in fetters to carry him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessels of the house of Yahweh to Babylon, and put them in his temple at Babylon. Daniel. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. Daniel. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand with part of the vessels of the house of Yahweh, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. Daniel. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Yasharal, and of the king's seed, and of the princes.
One of the ways of stabilizing a conquered territory was to take a political elite and a social elite that had not proved reliable or cooperative and replace them with a new population of people who had no ties to the place.
Nebuchadnezzar had acquired an empire comparable to that of Assyria. Like the Assyrian kings before him, he devoted a great deal of the empire's resources to enlarging his capital city. Babylon rapidly rose to be the greatest and most splendid metropolis in the ancient world.
Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, Jehoiakim, not Jehoiakim, his father, Ezekiel, Jehoiakim, Mordecai's great-grandfather Kish, and Ezekiel taken captive. 2 Kings, and he carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. None remained, save the poorest sort of the people of the land. And he carried away Jehoiakim to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land. Those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. And all the men of might, even 7,000, and craftsmen and smiths 1,000, all that were strong and apt for war, even them the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon. Ezekiel. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Kibar, that the heavens were open, and I saw visions of Yahweh. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity. Please remember, Jehoiakim was taken into captivity before Zedekiah. Nebuchadnezzar, compare-contrast, inside on Ezekiel. His message was the most spiritual of the prophets, as he dealt more with the person of Yahuwah. Someone has said Ezekiel is the prophet of the Spirit, as Isaiah is the prophet of the Son, and Jeremiah the prophet of the Father. During the first years of the captivity, the false prophets said that the people would be returned to Jerusalem and that the city would not be destroyed. It was not until the final deportation during Zedekiah's reign that the city was destroyed, some 11 years after Ezekiel was taken captive.
True that one of the things that a good Mesopotamian king did was cultivate royal gardens in which you could display plants and animals from the empire. This was one of the ways of showing the scale and range of conquest, and therefore giving a kind of living, breathing, green image of power.
Nebuchadnezzar died at the age of 84 in 562 BC. During his reign, Babylon's literature, arts, and sciences flourished. Generous state patronage, a strong economy, and the wealth of conquest gave rise to a golden age in Babylon. But beneath the glittering surface of society, all was not well. Disquiet and disloyalty crept in, and Babylon's next king would declare allegiance to Babylon's ancestral enemy. In June 556 BC, a commoner called Nabonidus became king of Babylon in the aftermath of a violent coup d'etat. He made himself immediately unpopular with the priests and the people at large. Not only did he claim to have been a loyal subject of the Babylonians' old nemesis, Assyria, but he also neglected their principal deity, Marduk, in favor of the god worshipped by his mother.
Nabonidus is very much close to his mother, who seems to be a priestess dedicated to the god Sin, the moon god.
In 549 BC, Nabonidus, who was a genuinely devout man, did the politically unthinkable. He left his young son Belshazzar in charge of Babylon, and for a decade abandoned the country to go and build and restore temples devoted to Sin, the moon god, in Tamar, in southern Arabia, and Haran, in northern Mesopotamia.
The people in Babylon are quite unhappy with Nabonidus because they feel like he has forsaken them.
Belshazzar failed to take seriously the looming threat of Persian imperialism. The Persians and their cultural near neighbors, the Medes, inhabited the eastern highlands beyond the Zagros Mountains and the lands along the Persian Gulf. The Achaemenid dynasty of southwest Persia was rapidly becoming the dominant force in the Near East. These warlike people owed their success to rigorous military training for everyone.
Persian boys had to learn how to ride horses well as the art of archery. And so in these two military tactics, the Persians were quite good.
In 559 BC, a new king ascended the Achaemenid throne. He was Cyrus the Great. A mercurial military strategist, his reputation in history also derives from his supreme negotiating skills and for his clemency and tolerance. In 10 years, he became famous not only for his military prowess, but also for a completely bloodless victory against the Medes.
He is going to take on this amazing campaign of first conquering the Iranian plateau, which was ruled by the Medes. Before the battle, a large number of the Median contingent, their forces actually come to Cyrus and desert the Median ruler. And hence, he's victor before even the battle begins.
Cyrus won victory after victory. By 546 BC, he had amassed a vast empire stretching from Asia Minor in the west to the Persian plateau in the east. All that remained outside his control was Babylon, Mesopotamia's political, cultural, and religious center, and the territories subject to Babylon in Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine. To conquer them would see the birth of a new world empire and the greatest to date in history. Cyrus couldn't resist the challenge.
Babylon is the center of the world, the capital of the world at this time. Once Cyrus steps into Babylonia and the city of Babylon, he pretty much has changed world history. You are now the master of the capital of the world. Now he's going to descend upon Babylonia.
In 539 BC, Nabonidus returned to defend his kingdom, but he was too late. Babylon held out for only a few days. Belshazzar was killed. With characteristic clemency, Cyrus demanded no more than Nabonidus become his prisoner. Cyrus received the submission of all Babylonia, and the people welcomed him as a liberator.
In fact, green twigs are placed before his feet. A state of peace is imposed into the city.
Babylon, Zedekiah, the uncle of Jehoiakim, not Jehoiakim, his father. Nebuchadnezzar took away Jehoiakim, and with him all the men of weight and character. Zedekiah, the last king of Judah, uncle and successor of Jehoiakim, reigned 11 years, was carried captive to Babylon. Zedekiah, after the deportation of Jehoiakim, the non-David bloodline, the second classes of Judah, are left with Zedekiah, the uncle of Jehoiakim. It was during his reign, Zedekiah, that Jerusalem was destroyed by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Dun, dun, dun. The siege began in Zedekiah's 9th year. Wall of Jerusalem is penetrated 18 months later, year and a half. Zedekiah taken. Nebuzaradan arrives, Chaldean general. Jerusalem and temple burned, and the walls broken down. Jeremiah released by Babylonians. Break this down, please, Hebrew. Second Kings. And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came, he and all his hosts, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it, and they built forts against it round about. And the city was besieged unto the 11th year of King Zedekiah. And on the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine prevailed in the city, and there was no bread for the people of the land. And the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled by night, by the way of the gate between two walls, which is by the king's garden. Now the Chaldees were against the city round about, and the king went the way toward the plain. And the army of the Chaldees pursued after the king, and overtook him in the plains of Jericho, and all his army were scattered from him. So they took the king, and brought him up to the king of Babylon to Riblah, and they gave judgment upon him. And they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him with fetters of brass, and carried him to Babylon. And in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which is the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem. And he burnt the house of Yahweh, and the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem, and every great man's house burnt he with fire. And all the army of the Chaldees that were with the captain of the guard brake down the walls of Jerusalem round about. Now the rest of the people that were left in the city, and the fugitives that fell away to the king of Babylon, with the remnant of the multitude, did Nebuzaradan the captain of the guard carry away. But the captain of the guard left of the poor of the land to be vine dressers and husbandmen. Now that will be a farmer, okay? Ezekiel. And it came to pass in the 12th year of our captivity, in the 10th month, in the 5th day of the month, that one that had escaped out of Jerusalem came unto me, saying, The city is smitten! It's smitten!
The Jewish people are forced into exile, a 500-mile journey east to Babylon.
No! No!
Zedekiah is the last of King David's descendants to reign. The Israelite monarchy ends here. Jeremiah is one of the few to escape. He heads to Egypt, never to return. The people have lost their prophet, their city, and their king.
You there! On your feet! Let Uriah live.
Come on!
Come on!
The Jewish nation needs a different kind of leader to survive in Babylon. A man like Daniel. Daniel has visionary powers and is forced to work in Nebuchadnezzar's court.
Has no one anything to tell me? Can you not even describe my dream? Silence is no answer. You're supposed to be wise men. Sorcerers. Seers. So what do you see?
Sire, forgive me. No one here can read your mind.
Then what use are any of you?
My God can. He has shown me your dream.
Then you will be able to tell it to me. Every detail.
You saw a giant statue of a man. Its head made of gold. Then a giant stone struck the statue, smashing it to pieces.
I know that much! What does it mean?
The statue represents the empires that will follow yours. Yours is the greatest. The head of gold.
And the stone that destroys the statue.
That is the kingdom of God. In the future, God will reign over all the world. Forever.
Destroyed by God.
Yes, sire.
What's your name?
Daniel.
You're a brave man, Daniel. I value that. You will serve me.